All right. Hello, I am BMillzebub, and welcome to my channel. Tonight, I have yet another one of my Apostate interviews, and tonight I have the Wonder Lady. How you doing, Wonder Lady?
Hi, I'm okay.
That's
I'm
good.
glad to be here.
I'm glad to have you here. So tonight's going to be a little different because, unlike everyone else I've interviewed, the Wonder Lady is not an apostate. So
No.
I am kind of breaking the rules of my own channel a little bit, but I'm okay with that because I don't often get to hear the perspective of someone who has never been religious before. So why don't you? I think the best place would probably be to start by asking what your upbringing was like, because I know for most of us, myself included, we had a religious upbringing where we went to church or some sort of worship service on Sundays, Saturdays if you're a Jew, you know. And I'm just kind of curious how yours differed.
Well, instead of church, we went to the planetarium. Well, I also nagged for that a lot. Um, I grew up in a very strict household. Like, if I shoveled my driveway for the snow, I had to shovel the neighbors too. And basically, the rule was just keep shoveling until you're tired.
Hmm.
And of course, neighbors would come out and we'd all shovel together and try to get as many people shoveled out as possible. But like, basically, it was the good neighbor policy.
Mm-hmm.
Be a good neighbor, be a good person. Don't just do for yourself. If you have time and the energy to help, you're supposed to help. If you are only concerned about your own stuff, basically you're a bad person.
Hmm.
And we weren't none of this was like churchy or anything. This was just the family rules, like be involved in your community, be involved with other people, do your best. Don't waste your don't waste your or anyone else's time with your own selfishness. Or- Selfishness was not allowed.
Hmm. Well, that's definitely more. Trying to think of the word here. Considerate, I guess, to your neighbors than I guess the upbringing I was given, because we, the mindset that I had growing up, if it snowed, you know, obviously I had to shovel my own driveway and the sidewalk, but anyone else, like any of my neighbors who wanted theirs to be shoveled, they had to pay,
No,
so.
uh, you know, money wasn't really a part of it. It was you're a part of a community, and I did get to see like family go to town meetings, family like delivering meals to sick people in the neighborhood. Of course, you visit people when they have surgery and you make sure that they're okay, or that if somebody dies, like you bring over plates of food and you offer comfort. Um, there wasn't any like God is watching and you'll be in trouble. If anything, it was admitting to other kids that I didn't go to church. That was a problem because then I started getting picked on. And it was really hard for me because it's like I'm doing everything I can, not necessarily to be a good person. I interpret it that way now, but like we always talked about it as a civic duty.
Mhm.
Like if you're going to be a part of the planet, you need to clean up your trash, you need to plant your trees, keep your garden. It's not just about you and your family. If you want to have a healthy home life, you make sure that your neighbors aren't miserable. And if they need comfort, you comfort them. If they're like in need of a babysitter, you help them find a babysitter. If not, volunteer for childcare, that type of thing.
Okay. So you actually did stuff for people instead of saying, I'll send you my thoughts and prayers.
Right. It was a very more hands-on type of thing. Like if someone was painting their boat, you go over and you volunteer, or if the worst case scenario, you just bring them a pitcher of iced tea. Like you were we were always expressing care for other people. Like most of my neighborhood was elderly, and my cousins and I would work very hard to help them tie up their newspapers for recycling day and things like that. Clean driveways, chip barnacles off of boats, weed, whatever we were told to do, we did. It
Hmm.
it was just really busy. Like you never had time for yourself. But at the same time, like you were never bored, and people expressed gratitude. And like if I got locked out of my house, I could go to any house in the neighborhood and wait for my grandmother to come home, or wait
Yeah.
for my mother to come home, because like there was no way anyone was going to treat me badly. In fact, uh when I got my newspaper route, that was my first job. As I was delivering my papers, especially holidays, I got so many presents and gifts and food and stuff. It's like everyone wanted to give me hot chocolate on the days that it snowed. And you didn't want to say no because you knew that they made that chocolate and they were waiting for you to show up. It's like, "Hi." It was hi. It took me so long to make my deliveries during Christmas time, but it was good. It was like being part of a large extended family. And you know what? I still feel that way.
Hmm.
I may not like my neighbors, but you don't like all your family either. Like there's always that cousin you don't get along with, or there's always like some aunt and uncle that's completely batshit crazy. You know what I mean? And
Yeah.
but that doesn't mean you don't love them. It just means that, oh no, they're coming. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So you mentioned a couple of minutes ago that you got bullied for not being a believer in some kind of religion.
Right.
Um, so I was bullied when I was younger, but it was for, like petty shit. Like I wasn't wearing the same kinds of pants as everybody else. I when I was a kid, I grew up wearing sweatpants because I was weird. But I'm kind of wondering what it's like to get picked on for not being religious. Because when I was in high school, my popularity jumped when I became more active in the church. So what was bullying like for you?
Well, stupid me. I'm on the school bus and surrounded by these people, and some girl was talking about church that I was sitting with, and I'm like, so what happens there? Because like usually my grandmother was a church organist, and I would help her and I would switch the pages, but a lot of the times I was too busy to pay attention. Like I think I was assisting my grandmother for years before I even heard part of the service. And the part that I heard was communion, and I instantly got squicked out with the idea of cannibalism. I was like, "Oh!" Like, I went home, "Mom, oh my goodness." And after that, I started telling her all the horrible things because I started listening a little. I was like, "Mom, I can't believe, you go home and complain." And they'd all have a laugh and stuff like that. But like on the school bus, I was like, yeah, what's it like? Because I when you are working, you're not really paying attention to sermons and stuff. like I was running up and down stairs with music books or helping or assisting or doing something, like cleaning or whatever. So, like, this girl was talking about church, and I was just like, yeah, what's that like? To sit there and actually actively listen. And she's like, what do you mean? I'm like, well, whenever I'm in church, I'm working. And she's like, blah, blah, blah. And it came out somehow that, like, I'm a non believer, even though I do work and clean candlesticks and stuff like that. Well, shit hit the fan. Next thing you know, everyone is told, like throughout the entire school, that I'm a devil worshiper. And that I'm mad at God, and like I do satanic rituals in my house with my family.
Did you?
And no, I hadn't even heard about Satan, actually. I didn't like I hadn't heard of him. I hadn't heard of the Jersey Devil, which of course they had to tell me about. But it was this huge campaign that, because I didn't believe, of course I had to believe in like the other part of their religion, and I didn't believe in that either. And it hurt. It really hurt. Like I cried for the longest time because they're like, "Do you do rituals? Do you kill animals?" And it's like, I'm not a serial killer. Like, what are you talking about? So after a while, I'm like, okay, fine. If you're gonna judge me. I'll give you something to judge. But eventually, it calmed down. But that's I think that drove home the point that not only do these people believe in cannibalism, but if you're not part of their club, they hate you. They
Yeah.
really like hate you. And when you're like 13, that's a really bitter pill to swallow.
Yeah. So you didn't like start investigating any of this until you were already old enough to be applying logical thought then?
Oh, I didn't investigate religion at all. I knew it was complete bullshit. Like I didn't believe in Santa either, cuz even though I got presents from Santa, I my presents from Santa, like the name Santa was in quotes. I knew my mother's handwriting. And I thought it was funny. Like we did the traditional Christmas thing, but without the God part.
Yeah,
It,
that's
it, it wasn't really for anything other than the fact my mother really likes decorating trees.
that's kind of what my family does now. We actually still have to decorate the tree. It's sitting there with like half the lights on it, but Christmas is pretty much just a secular holiday for my family as well. It's I mean, I'm sure my nephew's dad takes him to church or whatever, but for the most part, it's secular. The kid enjoys getting presents. He doesn't enjoy going to a church at midnight, which is when
Right.
most Catholics do it. At least they did when I was younger. So like pretty much the bulk of the bullying you would get would be like just saying you're a devil worshiper, or did
Yeah,
they did
yeah.
and kids are uninventive. They're cruel, but they're uninventive. If they couldn't think of something better than devil worshiper.
Well, when you're 13.
I don't know. Maybe the 13-year-olds I knew when I was that age were more inventive. But uh, I don't know. It's just interesting to me because I don't get the chance to. Well, I mean, I talk to you fairly regularly, in the group chat, but
Right.
I don't get the opportunity to meet many people that were brought up non-religious, so it's interesting to me.
It's kind of a non-entity, and like I didn't really start paying attention. Like I thought the whole cannibalism thing was just gross and weird, and like the human sacrifice part really stood out. Like these people think that's a good thing. But until I started being called a Satan worshiper, it really struck home to me like how absolutely exclusive that Get Into Heaven Club was. And uh well, I'm sorry to anyone who believes or who used to believe, but I judged religious people very harshly after that. Like I really took a good look at it from my perspective. I didn't see a human sacrifice as a gift. I didn't see it as an act of love. I saw it as a horror show. Um, I mean, my house was always full of books, and part of the book collection on the shelves was a ton of mythology, a ton of science books, a ton of all kinds of things. And my grandmother was a teacher, so there was history books and language books and grammar books, although I'm really bad at grammar. But like we didn't my mother always said that she didn't believe in organized religion, and she let me make up my own mind, but she also said don't let anyone brainwash you.
Hmm.
And when I asked her what that meant when I was older, she's like, don't just take anyone's word for anything. Unless, of course, they're telling you don't drink bleach or don't mix ammonia and bleach and find out why. But yes, don't do things that are dangerous and don't do, and it's like, okay. But for the most part, I started judging believers really harshly.
In
And then
what
my
ways?
grandfather died. And the priest or minister or whatever, I don't know what they're called, but he came over and my grandmother's employer, and he held had us all hold hands while he did a prayer. And I was confused. My mother was uncomfortable. My grandmother was uncomfortable. We were just really not happy there. And we knew that he was trying to provide comfort, but really, it wasn't appropriate. It didn't feel good and it wasn't comforting. Not just because there were no active believers in the house, but because he made assumptions about us. We didn't correct him, but at the same time, it didn't help to have our hands held. It didn't help with the death part, and to hear that grandfather's in a better place didn't help either. Like I said to my mother, why do they say that? And she said, well, and she explained the concept of the afterlife. Oh, like I'm thinking that's nonsense. When you're dead, you're dead. It hurt every time. It's like constantly over and over again. Either I was picked on by these people, judged by these people, put into a category I didn't belong to, or I was getting prayed for or something. Even hearing, "Oh, you're such a darling, you're God's gift to me." No, I decided to help you. God didn't tell me to help you. I'm not here because of his. I am getting credit for my actions. Don't you dare give this supernatural agency over the fact that I sacrificed my time, my energy, and my emotions for your benefit. Don't you dare tell me I'm God's gift to you. Like, I got really obnoxious and loud about it by the time I was in my 20s.
Hmm.
I've calmed down about it since then. But there was nothing more insulting you could say to me than, I'll pray for you. Because in my mind, that is just a great big screw you. Screw. I don't even know you. And I don't care to get to know you. And I'm going to assume things about you. Like, it was rude. I know they don't mean it to be rude. I know there's no harm in it. But, like, you
There's
know
no
how
help
people are
either.
like, don't assume gender? You know,
Yeah.
that whole new thing? Um, it's also don't assume somebody's religious status. But if I say, well, that's rude, people are like, they don't mean anything by it. Well, you could say that about a whole other positions out there. But I can't get like, that's kind of squicky. I don't want to belong to a human blood sacrifice club. I've never liked the idea. And it's not love and it's not gentle and it's not okay. And it was never okay. And I can understand, like, people have explained, if you're raised in it, you look at it differently. Okay, I'll grant you that. But the people who are saying don't assume gender, why isn't it okay to say don't assume religion or faith?
I'm not entirely sure anyone's thought to say that.
Well, I heard a cashier at Walmart the other day screaming like, I'm gonna say Merry Christmas and I don't care. I'm not saying that happy holiday stuff.
And we're also talking about Walmart, so that's
No,
it's
we're
kind of
also
par for the
talking about
course.
my area that I live in, which is hyper Christian.
Yeah. I
And
mean, the
I
the
wasn't
area I live
about
in
to
isn't very hyper Christian, but still, you found that at Walmart a lot.
right. But I walked up to her and I said, I say happy holidays because not everyone's a Christian. Which didn't identify me as an atheist, but it also didn't identify me as a Christian or a Jew or a Muslim or whatever. But I just said not everyone's a Christian. So why would you leave other people out? And she's like, I'm going to say what I want to say. And I said, well, you can do that. That's fine. And I left. But I'm just hoping that she took the message home. Like maybe thought about it for 3 seconds. I doubt it, but hey, it doesn't help though to assume that someone's going to be okay with, I'll pray for you. I mean, to me, that was offensive. And I know, yeah, I get it. People choose to take offense, but I got over it a little,
Hmm.
kind of. I know it's not a bad thing, but I don't see it as nice either.
That's fair. So this is probably going to be the most personal question I'll ask you about in this interview, and if you don't want to answer it, feel free to say no, and I'll just move on.
Okay.
Um, Growing up not believing, um, how did you deal with death? Because believers, as you mentioned before, have that whole they're in a better place now and they actually believe it. So how did you cope with that? Like if a pet died or something, or a loved
Or
one,
grandpa?
or a grandpa.
Um, well, it helped that my mother said that death is hardest on the survivors. It also helped that I knew that my grandfather wanted to die, and that the pain and the suffering was over. He was very sick.
Mm.
So, part of me was mad at him for not hanging in there for a few more years for my benefit because I was feeling selfish, but I also recognized that as selfishness. So I told myself, no, other people do not exist for you. And, like I think being taught as I was growing up to cherish family and cherish relationships with people and neighbors and friends, that the time that I got to spend with them would be the only time I get to spend with them. So I think I was already prepared to like live with my memories and to cherish them. But I think it hurt, but it I think it would have hurt worse if I had thought that he was watching and couldn't communicate with me. You know? Like, when you're dead, you're dead. So try not to live with regrets. Hard, th- hard thing to say and do, but that's life.
It is.
We did a lot of crying, but I think it was easier in the long run for me. I
Yeah,
mean, like,
probably.
I do look at death rather permanently. I always have.
All right. And if like say that you have um like a deathbed conversion, let's say, do you want to kind of nip it in the bud now and say you won't be in your right mind, kind of like Christopher Hitchens did, or
Repeat
like if you have a deathbed conversion, like a lot of Christians say that Christopher Hitchens did, do you want to kind of nip the thought in the bud and say no, that's not going to happen like he did?
I don't think it's
it,
possible.
yeah. Well, the way Hitch kind of nipped it in the bud is, while he was dying of cancer, he said that if I have a deathbed conversion, it won't be me because I won't be in my right mind. I'll be suffering, delusional.
Right.
So don't believe it if I say anything like that, and definitely don't believe it if someone else does.
Uh, well, I already have talked to my sister about this. Like, if I have any type of conversion at any point in my life, they are to get me a brain scan because I won't be acting like myself. Um, it's not like I was ever convinced that this was a real thing. So for me to suddenly, quote unquote, change my mind over something that has perplexed me my entire life, like, I don't even get why anyone would want to believe. I've heard people go, "Oh, I wish God did exist." And I'm like, "Why?" Like, I don't get that at all. I don't know why would anyone would want that. It just doesn't make any sense. Why would anyone want basically a voyeur? Like, you can't even take a pee without being observed? Come on. It's weird.
No, let's try to not kink shame now, Wonder Lady. Come on.
True. You know, I don't want it kink shame, but I don't know nothing, and whatever floats your boat, it's totally fine.
All right, so that got a little deep. So let's lighten it
Sorry.
up. No, it's my fault. I kind of took it in that direction. But let's lighten it up by asking, what do you say to theists who say you need to have a good reason to not believe?
I hear that from theists and I hear that from atheists.
I'm actually going to ask you about atheists next, but
Okay.
for now I'm a little more.
I need a good reason not to believe. Well, see, it's not a question of believing, it's a question of being convinced. Right? Like, you really can't get to the believe part. I mean, sure, maybe you could fake it till you make it, but I'm not convinced, and I'm not going to lie to people and say, yeah, like, I found God, and that it would make me feel dirty to lie to people like that, and it would make me feel bad to, like, pretend. I mean, it's really awkward when you go to somebody's house and they're very religious and they include you in their prayers, or they say grace over their food and they're including you in that experience. It feels better though to say, I don't share this with you. I can hold your hand and I can let you say your magic words. Of course I don't phrase it that way, but I'm thinking it. But I can hold your hand and you can do your rituals, but I am on the outside of that, so it's just a little odd for me. So I can't get involved. Like, I'm never gonna lead a grace.
That's fair. I will never lead another one. So
But like one Thanksgiving, my grandmother had me sing a like a God themed song before dinner in place of grace. And my grandmother was a professional musician, so she played the piano and I sang. And we had some Catholics in the family, and she sat down at the table and said, "Will that do? Will that do for you? Like, did the song and stuff, that was fine, right? Because that took the place of grace that year." And my uncle was like, yeah. And I was just like, I had to sing the song, turned around in my chair because I couldn't meet anyone's eye because I couldn't help rolling my eyes during the godly lyrics.
uh,
So what do you
and
do?
yeah, and before we move on to how you respond to atheists saying pretty much that same thing for you, I know you love my cat, and she is here on my
I
lap right now.
do. She looks just like my little girl. She's such a
Little
cutie pie.
spoiled little thing.
Oh.
Yeah, she wants to spend a little time right there on my shoulder. So you in the audience get to look at her butt for a while. Um,
She's
and
a perfect little angel.
she likes to believe she is, yes. So while I have the cat up here, why don't you tell us a little bit about how you respond to atheists saying pretty much exactly that?
Oh God. Well, here's the problem. I noticed that the people who say that kind of thing are usually apostates, and they've gone through the process. And I respect them. Don't get me wrong. I know this sounds like I'm complaining. but again, it's a question of being convinced. If you've never been convinced, you don't really have a reason not to believe.
Yeah,
You
and
never had a reason to believe, and there's really it's not so much like, hey, this is delicious, try this dessert. It's like there's nothing physical there. There's no reason. There's never been a reason to even flirt with the idea. Like a lot of people say, it's God is evident, but no, not really. So to sit there and say you have to have a reason, you really don't need a reason. If you're not convinced, you're not convinced. And I hear people go, well, that's not a good enough reason. That's not a good enough argument. That's not a good enough this. That's not a good enough response. But it's an honest response. I mean, I know a lot of people want that aha and that gotcha argument. But there is no aha or gotcha argument for either side. Like, if there was a lot, either everyone would believe or they wouldn't believe. You know?
yeah,
There's like, there's no gotcha. I mean, I was talking to somebody who used to be a Mormon, and they weren't a Mormon after dealing with me for a couple of months, and all I said was like, oh, like, yeah, all those kids with cancer, thank Jesus for that, because one of my cousin's daughters was born with bone cancer and almost lost her arm. I've got a nephew who was born with congenital heart condition. But, like, because her grandfather served in Vietnam and the exposure to Agent Orange did some DNA damage. I was born before he went to Vietnam, but she was born after. So it's kind of like in her genes, but not in mine.
hmm,
But the thing is, it's just like, you know, what what are we dealing with here? Like, I hear all the, well, no, that's a dumb argument, and that this is a dumb argument, and that's a dumb argument. I hear from apostates all the time, and it's just like, yeah, but you know what, is it an honest argument? I don't believe in magic. And they're like, oh, you're just borrowing that from Aaron Ra. It's like, no, I really just never have believed in magic. I didn't hear Aaron Ra. I discovered Christopher Hitch. He actually made me nicer about religion
Hitchens
than
made you nicer.
nicer, because I used to be a complete jerk about everything. You know what I mean? It's like listening to atheists talk about like their experiences and the apostates talk about their experiences has made me a little softer about people who do believe and who used to believe, especially the people like religious apologists. I'm not as I'm not as ready to punch them in the face, even though like faith healing makes me completely angry. And like fleecing people, like I heard about this woman who won the lottery, and her her church leader went over and basically had her donate her lottery winning to his church. And I was
Wow.
disgusted. It's like I'm totally disgusted when I hear stories like this. It makes me so angry. Or when some elderly person in the church is told that they have to tithe what little they get, and they're living 2 weeks on like basically a tin of tuna and a box of tea, but they're still expected to give X amount to their church because they're worried
Yeah.
about themselves when they die. That's a scam, in my opinion. I get mad. I get very mad. But I'm a little softer about it because I do realize that people who believe are convinced, or at least they must be convinced. Maybe not all of them are convinced. Maybe some of them are trying to fake it till they make it. But it's uncomfortable. I don't know. Did I
Hmm.
answer your question or did I?
Yeah, you did. I'm still kind of hung up on Christopher Hitchens made you softer.
He did. Well, one, it was nice to have someone sit there and say, offense is something you take, but also it was also nice to hear you should be offended. Because there was something that was offensive, and it was basically child predation by the church, Catholic priests, and child rape, and having him say you should be offended, when he decided to take offense, because not only is it like, yes, you are choosing to be offended, but yet there are times where you should be pissed off, and it's not just reason that matters, it's also your morality, your emotions, your passions. And it's okay to be mad about something. And that kind of like took some of the vinegar out of my position.
Hmm.
It was like I heard from another human being, yeah, it's okay to get pissed off. I like that. I'm sorry.
Yeah. Well, I mean, when you explain it that way, I can kind of get it. But I mean, it's like most of like what I've seen of Christopher Hitchens. He was one of those, firebrands. You know what I mean? So,
You never met my grandma.
you know, well, let's see what else is there. So, audience, what I'm guessing most of you are apostates. What questions do you have
Yay.
for the Wonder Lady? Oh no, she she
She's
is
perfect.
remarkably tolerant of being cradled like this.
Oh.
Yeah, I know
She's
you love
wearing
her.
her
So.
athletic socks.
Yeah,
Oh,
the spoiled little thing. She likes to knead on my beard. She loves doing that. It's adorable as hell.
it is. She's absolutely sweet. No, but it's like I hear a lot from people who used to believe. I also hear a lot from people who have never believed, because uh, you kind of can tell who's got the indoctrination showing through. It's almost like your slip is showing. Um, and as people like stay out of their religion and stuff and make peace with the fact that what they used to believe isn't real, they change over time. Like, I guess they let go some of the baggage that they carried.
Yeah.
Yes, my kitty is looks very similar to Bub's, except for instead of like the triangle on the nose, she's got a bunny silhouette on her face. But yeah, um, it. I think I think anger is a natural thing, and I don't think people should be ashamed of it. I don't think people should act on it as much as express it, allow it to process. Like, there's so much about human emotions that the church isn't okay with. And
Yeah.
I would say that a lot about a lot of religions. It's like there's a lot of guilt and shame, self control, like, oh, you just want to sin. And I look at people when they say that to me, like, I've heard that, like, you don't believe in God because you want to sin. I want to sin? Is that why I shoveled all those driveways? Is that why I volunteered for driving firefighters to classes for over a year? Is that why I've given free childcare to people who needed it so that they could go to school? Is that why I do as much as I do for people? No, I only do what I think people need. Not what they want, but what they need. And I try to make the difference that way. It's like I can't give everyone what they want, because like then I would have no time for me. But if something would actually improve somebody's life, like watching their kid after school for a year while they go and get their nurse's license or whatever, of course I'm going to help out. Of course I'm not going to charge for it, because that one small action is going to make a difference in somebody's quality of life. Like, of course. You don't call the police on your neighbor because they can't mow their lawn. Just mow their lawn. They could be sick. Like, I've broken into tears because I'm watching the news and there's this guy and he was in his 80s, and this is like in the 1990s this happened, but like his neighbors had the township come down on him for not mowing his lawn. He's in his 80s. It's in the summer. There's a heat wave. It's dangerous for him to mow his lawn. You mow his lawn for him. Go ahead. Don't bitch about it. Don't give him a fine. Help! What is wrong with people that they can't help somebody? Especially if it doesn't take money out of your pocket, you know? I don't get it. I don't get people for the most part. And I don't get religious people mostly. Like, someone like SJ is an alien to me. Oh, seriously, I don't get her.
No,
'Cause
I don't either.
even as obnoxious as the kids at school were with their, like, you're a devil worshiper now, they never went to her levels. They weren't that bad. It's not like they pushed me or hit me or shoved me or tell me I shouldn't live. They were just trying to peer pressure me into their religion.
Yeah,
She's just terrible.
I'd agree
I
to
don't
that.
know. Anything else you want to know?
I don't suppose you could put up a picture of your kitty on the screen, could you?
No, I
Like,
can't because well, you've seen the drawing I made of her, right?
I might have. I think you shared a lot of your drawings in the
Let
Flu
me
for Earth religion thing.
uh well, Hangouts is working on a different program on a different machine. So let me go through my pictures on my tablet and see if I can find a picture of Patty Cat. My little Patsy Cat, my patty cakes, my baby. Let's see if I can find a picture of her beautiful little mug for you. And maybe, you can share it to people because, like, I'm very proud of my cat and I love her. But
Yeah, I should be able to do that.
she usually has floor face. You know how people have bed head?
Hmm.
She gets floor face.
I'm not sure what floor face is.
It's like bed head.
Oh, like just drag her face on the floor and now her fur's all messed up, or
No, she lays on the floor a lot, and like one side of her head will look flat. It's really
okay.
cute. She does
See,
cute well though.
this one loves to lay down on my hoodies or like the sweatpants I sleep in.
Uh-huh.
I think she just likes my smell.
Well, yeah, because you're part of her. She owns you.
She
You do
does.
realize that, right?
Oh yeah. Well, she's the one that picked me, actually, because my sister's the one that adopted her.
Oh,
Yeah.
I
So
see. So you really are owned.
yeah, I think part of it, I was sitting down, and the first time she jumped up on me, she was like really focused on my beard. So I'm kind of guessing one or both of our last humans had a beard on their face. Yeah, because she can get kind of fixated on that thing, because you saw a little earlier, like 5 minutes or so ago, she'd reach up and just sort of do this sort of thing with my beard.
Yeah. But she loves you. Of course she's gonna wanna
Yeah,
groom
she
you.
loves me so much. She digs her sharpened claws that I still need to trim into my flesh.
Aww.
Yeah, that doesn't feel pleasant, little one. No, it hurts. It does.
So, aside from the kitty cat thing, anything else you want to know about growing up without a religion?
Well,
It's kind of nice. I highly recommend it. Like, if
I'm
anyone
sure it
has
would
a
be.
kid, you don't have to give them the Bible lessons to get them to behave. I did have a very strict family. And
Like
we were
strict and
really, really, really active in everything we did.
see, I'm wondering what kind of strict, because when I hear strict, I hear religious, like conservative religious family. You know what I mean?
Strict as in you're not allowed to go near the bulkhead because you might drown. Strict is, what do you call it? You don't mouth off. Strict is, homework must be done by this o'clock and this, that, and the other thing. And you're not allowed to wear blue nail polish and. Like, we had rules.
Well, the blue nail polish seems kind of arbitrary, but everything before it sounded kind of like trying to, you know, extend your
Normal,
life by not drowning and, you know,
you know,
getting you on a schedule, like with the
well, we
homework
had to
thing.
have manners. We had to do what we had to do. We had to honor obligations. We weren't allowed to lie. We weren't allowed to like be awful. You know, basically just don't behave in ways that I guess it's kind of like the golden rule, do unto others, but instead of like don't act like other people, act the way you would like other people to act, but don't expect them to act like you. But be the example you want to see in the world. And also, I've also been told many times that kindness is contagious. So, like, even if don't do things because people owe you, but kindness is contagious and that kind of thing. That made a difference. Those type of messages made the difference, I think.
Oh
And
yeah.
they still do. Cuz like if I were obnoxious, I think my family would have died of shame, but it's also don't take crap from other people. Don't believe in things that are going to hurt you. Uh yeah.
Reese wants to know if you've ever shot a gun, and if you have, what was it?
I would never touch a gun.
Hmm. See, I actually enjoy them.
I don't like the sound. I don't like the idea of them. I don't want them near me. I don't like them. I don't like them. I don't like them. I really don't like them. I especially hate noise like that. There's something I don't even like to hear the sound of a hammer hammering. I'm very strange about sound and I really don't like that sound. And hunting season here, like the whole time I'm stressed out and angry because that's all I can hear. Not it's not so much the idea because I know they're only hunting to feed their families, but ugh, I hate that.
Oh.
So sorry, Reese. I know that you like guns and they're part of your hobby and things like that, but I really just I've never been into it. And if like I don't even when I'm cleaning somebody's house, if they have guns, I ask them to lock them up.
That's fair. I mean, they probably should be locked up from the start.
Right.
But, if you want them to be secure anyway.
Well, you know, it's one of those things.
Having any luck finding that picture of your kitty so I can do a screen share?
I got her. I just found it now.
Uh-huh.
This is my girl.
There you go.
She's freshly brushed in this picture too.
Let's see if I can figure out how to do a proper screen share, or at
Do you
least
see her?
I do. I just want to. There we go. Screen share.
That's Patsy.
Let's see. Entire screen. Sure. Let's go with that. Now you guys are looking at that. There's Face Kitty. It actually, yeah, it's remarkably similar to my cat.
Yep.
Just
that's my little torturer.
I can't say
so
that they're exactly the same, but up, little one. Yeah, she's got a little more white on her face.
Yep. But they still have athletic socks on.
Yep, she's yep. Oh, there she goes.
Oh.
Oh, yes.
Does she have a beard?
No, it's more of a goatee.
She has a goatee. I call it a beard. Patsy's got a beard.
Just this little thing right here. It's actually probably more of a soul patch.
Oh.
Instead of like having just the full goatee, it's just like this little spot right here.
Look at me. Look at me. Yeah, Patsy's got a little beard. I don't know if Patsy is a Gemini. I'm her 7th owner.
Jeez.
And I spoil the crap out of her.
This one's definitely spoiled, aren't you? But you deserves it.
She was such a ball of stress when I got her. Now she owns the place.
Yeah, this one gets in like there's let's see, 5 cats in the house, including this one, and she's constantly getting in fights with the boys because all the rest are boys.
It sounds like my girl. Except for she no longer has to live with other cats. Because she hates other cats. But, yeah, I know I sound really judgmental about the whole, like, this argument isn't good enough. Well,
Yeah.
I know a lot of people I know and love has made those arguments, like, and videos about those things. And I don't necessarily agree, but that doesn't mean I'm like against what they're saying either. You know?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to believe in something, you do have to be convinced, and if you're not, you're not. It's not on you to say why you don't believe in a particular religion. It's. I mean,
Well,
I
I
have.
can explain why I can't. Like, I can explain the reasons why religion doesn't make sense to me. I can explain what I don't like about somebody's religion. I can explain why, like, all kinds of things. Like, they just have to ask me why. I'm not gonna go up to them and be like, "You believe in human sacrifice? You're disgusting." Like,
Yeah, I mean, beyond I'm not convinced, do you really need an argument? You know what I mean? I don't really see a point in, you know, being demanded that you have so many reasons, that
Well, it's
are
almost
so
it's almost
structurally
as
sound
bad.
against it.
It's almost as bad as a theist demanding that I do believe. It's like just the opposite though. It's like you need a reason why you don't believe, and the other side is saying you need a reason why like you you need to accept my reasons for belief, and you need to believe. It's like it's still peer pressure, in my opinion, and sometimes it's a little annoying. And but I do get it. Like you should have reasons, and I do have reasons, but none of my arguments are good.
See, I would say you would need arguments to believe something, not to not believe something or to lack belief in something. I am convinced that Catholicism in particular is not true. And once a month I put out a new video explaining exactly why, using their own resources, no less.
Right.
And I'm not as convinced that, like, say, Hinduism isn't true, because I've got no reason to look into it. It's not something I deal with regularly, and personally, the idea of polytheism is,
Silly.
I honestly think it's more ridiculous than monotheism, multiplied by however many gods are believed in the pantheon. So it's, you really do have to be convinced of something, to believe it. It really is kind of that simple, I think.
Well, it's almost like I had a 8-year-old tell me that I was indoctrinated into atheism, which was hysterical, by the way.
Yeah, because there's no doctrine.
Exactly.
Yeah.
But like I asked her to put herself in my position, and I left it
That's
at that.
that's the kind of thinking more people need to look at, I think. Look at it from someone else's point of view. People are kind of losing perspective on that, I think.
Uh, well, I think part of the problem is that like if you are brought up in a religion and you believe in your god, say your god's name is Fred, and you really think Fred is a good idea, and you think Fred touches everybody's lives and makes the sun rise and set, or whatever it is your religion teaches you about Fred, and you meet somebody and they don't know who Fred is or care, and yet they're not living on fire, are they? Maybe you should question Fred.
Yeah.
Or maybe you should just realize that Fred is your god and doesn't necessarily apply to other people. Like I I get that some people need it for the socialization. Like you hear some people who don't believe, or you hear from a believer and they tell you, "Look, I don't really believe, but church is my whole community." It's like, "Okay, fine.
Yeah. And
I'm not going to tell
community
you
is,
I'm not going to tell you what to do, and if you're comfortable lying to your loved ones, and sometimes, do you really have to tell your 95-year-old grandmother that you're an atheist so that she can worry about you until her dying day, or cause her heart attack or whatever? Like, do you really have to? It's kind of like coming out of the closet. Do you really have to, the second you discover it and end up homeless as a 13-year-old? Do you really have to, like, I I couldn't lie to my schoolmates about religion. it was just I'm kind of like too honest about things, and it's always been a problem. And I'm not saying people should lie, but also like if people want to assume things, but I want to encourage people not to assume things though. Like, don't assume I'm a Christian. Don't assume that praying for me is okay. Don't. I'm coming from like a whole bunch of different facets, and I know it sounds confusing, and I know I sound like I'm being hypocritical, but I don't claim I'm not hypocritical.
To some degree, every human is a little bit on something.
Right. Well, I wouldn't if I grew up in a religious family and I didn't believe in God, I don't think I would have gone out of my way to tell my grandmother. I don't even know if I would have gone out of my way to tell my mother. Friends, sure. But then again, I couldn't lie to the kids on the school bus, so I don't know how I would be if I had grown up in a religious family. I really don't know. Maybe I would have told grandma, maybe I would tell my mother, but I don't think people are obligated to quote unquote speak their truth just because it is. But they also shouldn't have to hide it either. But the world is a violent and horrible place. I know I have a great family. If I told them that I, some horrible thing, if I voted for someone they didn't like, yeah, they'd be upset, but they wouldn't skin me. I don't think there was anything I could have done to get thrown out of the house, but like when I say my family is strict, I was grounded for 2 years once. So I grew up with consequences. So being an atheist doesn't mean, growing up atheist doesn't mean you're not growing up with consequences. You learn consequences if you're in my family. And hopefully people are teaching their kids that consequences are real. But I was also taught that every interaction you have with people teaches them how you will allow them to treat you.
See, I think the atheists actually have more consequences because it's, immediate. You are immediately punished by, whoever's nearby, whether it's someone giving you the silent treatment or, you getting punished by your family or by society. Whereas Christians, they get to, and pretty much any other kind of theist, they get to defer all the consequence to the afterlife.
Yeah, but they're saved, right? So they can basically be assholes.
Yeah.
They can torture another kid on the school bus, especially if it's done in the name of God. Because, who cares about that person's feeling? They're not part of the club.
Yeah. Yeah. It's almost like you should, I don't know, treat others the way you would like to be treated. Or, yeah, I'm trying to remember your exact phrasing.
Be well, I think being the example of how you'd like other people to act, but without holding them to your standards, because you really can't control other people. But kindness is contagious, and it really is. Kindness really is contagious. I know people like to say, "Oh, you're a fool. You were taken advantage of." No, that's the bad way of looking at it. If you're doing the decent thing and you are never acknowledged, you can still stand on your high horse because you did the decent thing. You were the grown up. You were the responsible one. And I know people take that as pride, but there's nothing wrong with pride. That's another thing I don't like about religious things. Like, pride is bad. Well, pride that leads you to harm is bad. But having pride in yourself is fine. Knowing
It
you're
is.
doing the right thing is fine. Even if you don't like doing the right thing all the time. It's fine. It has to be your decision. Not because you're afraid that you're gonna go see the boogeyman after you die, which is so silly. Oh, oh, I had a friend burst into tears because she forgot it was like some sort of like, I don't know. You're not allowed to eat meat on Friday. I don't.
Lent.
Yeah, Lent or whatever. She was crying because we went to a diner and she had a burger and then she realized it was Friday because it was after midnight and she's crying because she's gonna go to hell. And I'm like, no, you're not. It's demonstrably fine. Or if that was the case, why can't you sue the diner for serving you meat on a Friday? Like, don't be stupid. Boy, was she mad at me. She
Oh.
was so mad at me because I'm like, what? It's fine. Like, I eat meat on Friday all the time, all year long. She's just looking at me like I had 3 heads. It was terrible.
Oh. We've been going for a little over an hour now, so I
Yeah,
think that's.
I'm sure people like are like, "Oh, Faye is boring." I
I don't think you can
I
ever be boring.
I strive to be boring though. Like in my real life. I like things predictable. I like I like knowing what I'm going to do for the day. I like knowing where things are, although my cat occasionally helps me lose things. But like, you know, I hope it helps. Like, try to give other people, whether they're atheists, are really good at giving Christians a break, especially if they're apostates, because they know where where they were, so they can actually commiserate with religious people. You know what I mean? Like, they
Yeah,
get what indoctrination can do to you. But when it
absolutely.
comes to other atheists, I hope people start giving them a break because everyone has different reasons, whether they've never believed or they're apostates. Everyone has a different reason why they left or why they never believed or all kinds of things. Just give people a freaking break. If you don't like their argument, maybe talk about your argument rather than saying your argument's no good. Don't shame people. And if you do shame people, well, I shame people. So I'm being a hypocrite again. Ignore me.
Well, yeah, but it's probably a good spot to end it. Do you want to take
Sure.
a quick minute to plug your channel real quick?
Actually, what I'd like to do is I would encourage everyone to like go to my Twitter and find my Christy Santiago pink ad. It has her PayPal on it. Her computer is a 7-year-old laptop, which is working at 100% capacity, which is why she's always roboting. And even if it's just $1, like dollars really add up. You know what I mean? Like they really do. If everyone gave $1, she could get 2 computers. So consider that. I mean, it doesn't have to be now because I know the holidays are approaching and everyone's already strapped in their budget. But I'm gonna be running this like encouragement, and we'll let you know when she gets her computer money, and like tipping her for her appearances on people's channels would be really nice. Because it's always nice to get a thank you of some type. But like, I at least have a Patreon. But Christy doesn't have her own channel yet, and there's no way she can make one without a desktop. You know what I mean? And that laptop is never going to get her where she needs to be. So consider that. Um, I I don't want to like pressure anyone or anything like that. So if in January you've got an extra $1 or $2, just remember that if you can.
Well,
And I thank you for that.
well, as luck would have it, I've got your YouTube and Twitter linked in the description box. So if everybody goes over to Wonder Lady's Twitter, you will be able to find that thing she's talking about, the PayPal for Christy Santiago, pretty quickly. So
Thank you. Because
yeah.
I mean, even if she never came on my channel again and didn't help me, I'd still want to do this. Because I don't like the idea of people being silent because they don't have the means to stay online.
Exactly. But I'm going to go ahead and stop the broadcast there. Take it easy, everybody else.
Bye!